When a piece of media is hated, it is hard for that media to recover its image. In the minds of all who hate it, that media will always be unacceptable. For a series like Boruto, this was the unfortunate reality. Having to follow in the footsteps of one of the greatest manga of all time was already a task greater than most budding manga had to undergo. But then, having to stand out as your own story while not being labeled a cheap copy was the most difficult task of all. From art critiques to bad animation, Boruto has received almost every criticism under the sun. But how could it not? Its predecessor, Naruto, is one of the most popular and important manga of all time. Just how Boruto struggles to cope with the expectations placed upon him, the Boruto manga struggled to overcome the massive expectations placed upon it by Naruto fans across the world. So how does a series like Boruto recover from being one of the most hated stories in the world? Can it ever truly repair the damage that was done so early on in its lifespan? To find our answer, we first have to look back. October 10th, 2015. A movie starring Naruto's son, Boruto, is released for the public to watch in theaters. The movie was teased at the end of the Naruto Shippuden anime, and promised to give a glimpse into Naruto and Sasuke's lives after the events of Shippuden. This sneak peek featured neither Naruto nor Sasuke as the main lead, however, but Naruto's son, Boruto Uzumaki. The movie is decently long, sitting at about an hour and 30 minutes, and features some of the best fight scenes in the entire series. Other than that, the film wasn't necessarily anything extraordinary. However, there were some questions left behind for fans to theorize about and talk over. With the film being moderately successful, 2 months later, a Boruto manga was announced, set to release its first chapter in May of 2016. And on May 9th, the first official chapter of the sequel to Naruto, Boruto: Naruto Next Generations, was released. This began what I'm going to call for this video, the Next Generations era. This includes everything to do with Boruto up until the release of its time skip, 2 Blue Vortex. Filling the air was excitement and questions, all about the sequel to Masashi Kishimoto's Naruto. Directly following the movie, the manga would tell the larger story at hand. However, it would not be Kishimoto behind the wheel this time. Chosen by Kishimoto himself, Ukyo Kodachi and Mikio Ikimoto would act as the writer and illustrator of the series. Kishimoto would simply act as a supervisor, operating in the shadows and making sure everything was okay from afar. However, this was by no means a small change for the series, and the differences between Naruto and Boruto were immediately noticeable by fans. The largest change by far was, of course, the art style. Kishimoto had spent years developing and honing his style for Naruto, as does every mangaka when writing a long series. How Naruto looked towards the end of the series was the image fans had safely tucked within their minds, so to read Boruto and see such a stark contrast was bewildering for people. The film, prior to the manga, had shared the same animation style as the latter part of Naruto Shippuden, so an expectation was immediately placed within the fans' minds. Ikimoto's art wasn't bad by any means, it was just different. And when something as beloved as Naruto is altered in any way, backlash is basically a given. It is also very highly important to mention that Boruto was not a weekly manga, but a monthly one. So as opposed to Naruto, instead of 3 to 4 shorter chapters a month, there would only be 1 longer chapter each month, ultimately meaning 12 a year. This naturally led fans to criticizing the art for not looking as good as they believed it should for a manga which had longer breaks in between chapters. However, I don't necessarily believe that this was fair at the time, because as with any art style, it takes a while to really grow into it and truly make it your own. Almost every manga in its early stages looked less polished than it did towards the end. Look at Naruto, for instance. Everything like the lines and the designs were much sharper in the beginning, but towards the end, Kishimoto had really come into his style and perfected it. The same can absolutely be seen in Ikimoto's case. In the beginning of his time illustrating for Boruto, you can tell he was still figuring out how he wanted to draw the characters. Now, in 2 Blue Vortex, you can see the massive difference that comes with time. No character looks wonky or over-exaggerated, and they all have their own looks and designs which are complemented beautifully by Ikimoto's improved art style. Change takes time to adapt to, and over the course of Boruto's lifespan, fans have grown more and more accepting of Ikimoto's style, understanding that he draws in his own style separate from Kishimoto. The time in which Boruto was being drawn is also a factor for this criticism. Boruto was being published alongside other extremely popular manga, such as My Hero Academia and Black Clover, both of which had stunning art for weekly series. However, the art was unfortunately not the only major criticism. As previously mentioned, in charge of the Boruto narrative this time around was not Kishimoto, but Ukyo Kodachi. In Kodachi's hands was a very odd puzzle to try and solve. Writing a sequel can either be very straightforward or, on the other hand, very challenging. Sequels tend to simply take the beloved characters from the previous installment of the franchise and continue to build upon them. While yes, almost all of the original characters from Naruto do play roles within the story, Boruto is a narrative about an entirely new cast of main characters, meaning the groundwork from Kishimoto's Naruto didn't apply to the characterization of the new cast members. This meant fans would have to warm up to an entirely new layout of protagonists and supporting characters, while undergoing an entirely new narrative. Usually, with a smaller and shorter series, this wouldn't be the largest issue in the world, but of course, Naruto as a series is one of the most beloved manga of all time. Separating from the characters once was already hard enough, but then to be promised a sequel, and it not to be focused on those beloved characters, immediately put Boruto in a negative position within fans' minds. However, what fans thought of the characters didn't necessarily matter, because it was Boruto's story now. Although, it didn't necessarily feel that way. Naturally, with a time jump, characters in anime are going to get stronger. For Naruto and Sasuke specifically, this was absolutely the truth. Their powers grew exponentially, utterly eclipsing Shippuden in terms of strength and scaling. Due to the main antagonists in Boruto being the Otsutsuki, there was no one even close to that level of power besides Naruto and Sasuke. This meant that they would have to be present in almost every large fight within the series. This didn't allow the series to feel like it was unique to Boruto as a character. It still felt as if people were watching for only Naruto and Sasuke. Of course, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it most definitely shouldn't be the case in a show about Naruto's son. Maybe a spin-off about Naruto and Sasuke, or maybe even just another show about the two of them would have been fine if the people making the story wanted them to still be the focal points. You can of course argue that simply not focusing that much on Naruto and Sasuke would also make very little sense because of their large presences in the world. And while this is true to some extent, their presence within Boruto is mainly felt because it is needed to be there. Beginning the series with an immediate final boss level villain in Momoshiki might have not been the smartest choice overall. While it was very cool and showed that there was power that existed beyond that of even Naruto and Sasuke, it was maybe too much too soon, and it didn't allow for Boruto to exist as his own character. However, this issue is extremely well handled in Two Blue Vortex, but we'll touch on that a little later. Boruto begins with a very interesting, but most definitely intentional, glimpse into the future. This slight choice to alter the reader's perception of the plot might have gone on to be one of the smartest decisions made in manga production ever. The readers, as soon as opening the first manga volume, are immediately shown 2 or 3 pages of a future scenario in which Boruto and a man named Kawaki are fighting on the side of Hokage Mountain. This created a level of hype surrounding Boruto, which had never been seen before. Due to this sneak peek at a potential time skip, fans of the series would battle against harsh criticisms online for years on end. However, immediately after this flash forward, the manga continued from a long point in the past, never returning to that time skip for about 6 years. The reader starts Boruto Next Generations with Boruto at around age 12, and he stays that way for basically the entirety of Next Generations. Boruto over time seemed to get large amounts of hate as a character. Boruto was labeled by fans as obnoxious and annoying. People disliked how he received all of his power-ups and abilities for basically free, and when he did receive a new ability, he was either immediately proficient with it, or it was simply a stronger evolution of past abilities fans saw in Naruto. An example of this would be Boruto's Vanishing Rasengan, an iteration of the iconic normal Rasengan from the original series. All of these complaints about the art style and Boruto's character were most definitely loud and clear, but the real hatred towards the series didn't begin until the Boruto anime was officially released. The largest complaint and debate surrounding the Boruto anime was its ratio of filler to manga canon content. As with every anime, Boruto had its fair share of filler, but this is extremely common. With long-running series, the anime which is adapting the manga will always have filler content. But this giant filler quantity was met with large debates due to a singular term, anime canon. Anime canon refers to content within a series that may not have happened in the manga, but is still canon to the overall story at end. Including supposed anime canon episodes, the filler percentage does drop down quite a large bit. This led to 2 sides. One side defending the Boruto anime, claiming that the anime canon episodes were simply that, anime canon, and was necessary to watch in order to gain the grander scope of the narrative. And the other side of the equation, the much larger side, was claiming that Boruto being 70% filler was an outrage, and that the series was horrible because of said fact. There was no clear answer. Either you view anime canon as true canon to the series, or you don't. There really isn't any right or wrong here. However, in moments where the anime and the manga were both on the same wavelength, very little complaints were had about the narrative. In fact, the promise of Boruto's narrative is quite possibly the only reason the series was able to survive till the time skip. People enjoyed the idea of Otsutsuki playing larger roles in the story. It felt as if the stakes had really gone up since the end of Naruto Shippuden. Unfortunately, these compliments were sparse, as most of the time people were ripping apart the Boruto anime for its lack of compelling episodes, and both the Boruto manga and anime for its subpar art and animation. To briefly touch on the Boruto anime's animation, yeah, it was extremely bad in a lot of moments, but when it was good, it really did deliver some of the most dynamic scenes in the entire franchise. So I don't think people bashing a couple of select bad scenes is necessarily warranted. While the quality of the animation was very questionable at times, in the big moments, the anime did deliver great stuff. To sum Boruto up, the series is a giant meld of the lowest of lows and the highest of highs. But there was one aspect about the Boruto franchise which enabled it to push past the criticisms and the hatred. This aspect is, of course, the time skip. Now, we enter the Two Blue Vortex era, the long-awaited Boruto time skip. Ikimoto is now in full control of the franchise, both illustrating and writing, and the fans are elated as the moment they've been hyping up for 6 years is finally here. As I mentioned earlier on in the video, the Boruto narrative was the show's saving grace. It's ultimately what kept people from dropping the series. The promise of a more stoic and serious Boruto was so enticing that the build-up to that point could afford to not be the best. And well, the time skip absolutely delivered. Maybe one of the largest character flips in manga, Boruto transformed into a serious badass. He was almost unrecognizable when compared to his younger self. Ikimoto's art had finally come into its own, and the characters and their designs in Two Blue Vortex are so clean and so unique. And some of the best fight sequences are present in Two Blue Vortex, with Boruto showing off the fruits of his training. With both Naruto and Sasuke effectively sealed, Boruto is finally given his time to shine. The previous complaints about Boruto being handed everything suddenly just evaporated, all because Ikimoto decided to fully play into the prodigy aspect of Boruto's character. And it only makes sense. Boruto is the son of the most powerful Hokage of all time, and a full-blooded Hyuga. He trains under the one man who can rival Naruto, and has the powers of a literal god in the shape of a diamond on his palm. He is proficient in multiple jutsu, and can even utilize the Flying Thunder God, the jutsu of his grandfather, Minato Namikaze, the 4th Hokage. The guy is absolutely overpowered. But because Ikimoto just leans into it, it's not seen as ridiculous, just extremely cool. The power jump from the past to the time skip is genuinely so large that it makes everything that much more exciting. As I brought up earlier, a large issue with early Boruto was that Naruto and Sasuke just felt too powerful. Both of them were there to solve every problem that was present in the series, so it still felt like the Naruto and Sasuke show instead of what it should have felt like, a show about Boruto. However, because of the later events in Next Generations, both Naruto and Sasuke lose the things that made them so powerful in the first place. Naruto loses Kurama, and Sasuke loses his Rinnegan. Due to this, neither of them have the ability to fight the high tiers within Boruto anymore, meaning that they can't solve all of Boruto's issues any longer. But now, in Two Blue Vortex, both of them are completely sealed, meaning Boruto is fully given his time to shine, and has finally passed them up in terms of power. Two Blue Vortex finally feels like it's fully about Boruto. It's no longer the Naruto and Sasuke show. Boruto now has to finally deal with his issues on his own, without the help of his father and sensei. The Otsutsuki are now wildly more powerful too, and still offer such an awesome antagonistic force that readers still don't know much about. And the feelings and vibe around the series have also flipped completely, with rarely anyone complaining about aspects of the manga. The Boruto time skip was easily one of the most anticipated events in all of anime and manga. Fans would plant their feet in the ground and assure people who were skeptical that the time skip would be worth the wait and turmoil. To live up to the great expectations that everyone had for the time skip is a stroke of brilliance from all the people working on the Boruto manga. The manga is still running and will for some time, building upon the epic time skip and surely delivering some of the coolest moments in any manga for fans in the future. While there has been no official announcement of a Two Blue Vortex anime, it is sure to come, gathering all the people who spoke down upon Boruto and uniting them. Of course, the quality of the anime will be a huge factor, but I doubt Studio Pierrot will be willing to risk what could potentially be one of their biggest hits. So, from utterly hated to wildly beloved, Boruto has seen its ups and downs, but the future seems extremely bright, and hopefully, it stays that way. Feel free to let me know if you've been keeping up with Boruto in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed this video, maybe like and subscribe. It would definitely mean a lot to the channel. But of course, just know that your viewership is enough for me. With all that being said, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.